Princess Ilara of Xylos knew her duty. She had been groomed for this moment her entire life, every lesson, every protocol, every tradition, drilled into her from a young age. The weight of her people's expectations rested heavily on her shoulders. Marriage to the brutal General Zod would unite their warring planets. It would bring peace. But at what cost? General Zod was known for his ruthlessness, his iron-fisted rule, and his lack of compassion. Ilara had seen the fear in the eyes of those who spoke of him, and she couldn't imagine a life bound to such a man. Ilara yearned for freedom, for love, for a life chosen, not forced. She often found herself gazing out at the stars, dreaming of what lay beyond her gilded cage. The vastness of space called to her, promising adventure and the unknown. She wanted to explore, to discover, to live on her own terms. So she hatched a plan. It wasn't easy. Every move had to be calculated, every step meticulously planned. She spent countless nights poring over maps and schematics, learning the palace's every nook and cranny. She enlisted the help of a few trusted allies, those who believed in her vision of a different future. Under the cover of darkness, Ilara crept through the palace corridors, her heart pounding like a drum. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every sound a potential alarm. She moved with the grace and stealth of a cat, her senses heightened, her mind focused on the task at hand. She reached the hangar, the sleek silver spaceship shimmering under the artificial light. It was a marvel of engineering, a vessel capable of traversing the stars. She had spent months preparing it, ensuring it was ready for this moment. It was her only escape, her ticket to a life unknown. It was her only escape, her ticket to a life unknown. She took a moment to steady herself, to gather her courage. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger, but it was a path she'd chosen. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With a deep breath and a trembling hand, she activated the launch sequence. The control panel lit up, a symphony of lights and sounds. She felt a surge of adrenaline, a mix of fear and excitement. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. The engines roared to life, shaking the very foundation of the hangar. The noise was deafening, a powerful reminder of the journey she was about to undertake. She could feel the vibrations through her entire body, a physical manifestation of her resolve. Ilara gripped the controls, fear momentarily forgotten in the face of exhilaration. She was in control of her destiny now, no longer a pawn in a political game. The stars were within her reach, and she was determined to make the most of her newfound freedom. The spaceship shot into the night sky, leaving behind the only world she'd ever known. The planet of Xylos grew smaller and smaller, a distant memory. She felt a mix of sadness and relief, knowing she was leaving behind everything she had ever known, but also embracing the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Ilara, the runaway princess, was finally free. She looked out at the vast expanse of space, a sense of peace washing over her. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in her life she was excited to find out. The adventure had just begun. The journey was long and arduous. Days bled into nights as Ilara navigated the vast expanse of space. Her only companions were the stars, twinkling like celestial fireflies against the velvet backdrop of the universe. She survived on ration packs, her dreams of a new life fueling her dwindling hope. She charted a course for a planet she'd only read about in forbidden texts. Earth, a world teeming with life, with stories of kindness, compassion and love. A stark contrast to the cold, calculating world she left behind. As Earth loomed closer, a blue and green jewel against the blackness, Ilara felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this planet held the key to the future she craved. A future where she could be herself, not a pawn in a galactic game of power. Crash landing in the English countryside was not part of Ilara's plan. Disoriented and injured, she stumbled out of the wreckage, her alien features hidden beneath the cloak. She needed help, but who could she trust? She found refuge in a small village, its inhabitants welcoming her with open arms. They couldn't understand her language, but their smiles were universal. They called her Ella, unable to pronounce her true name. She in turn learned their customs, their language, their ways. She discovered a talent for healing, her touch soothing even the most stubborn ailments. Word spread and soon people from neighboring villages sought her out. They called her Princess Ella, a title bestowed out of respect and admiration, not knowing how close they were to the truth. Meanwhile, on Xylos, Ilara's disappearance sent shockwaves through the palace. The once serene halls of the royal residence were now filled with whispers of concern and fear. The courtiers, usually composed and dignified, were now visibly distressed, their faces etched with worry. The news of the princess's sudden departure had spread like wildfire, leaving everyone in a state of shock and disbelief. Her brother, Prince Orion, was tasked with finding her. As the eldest son and heir to the throne, the responsibility fell squarely on his shoulders. He was known for his unwavering sense of duty and his fierce loyalty to his family. The weight of the mission was heavy, but Orion was determined to bring his sister back, no matter the cost. Driven by duty and a fierce loyalty to his sister, he set out across the galaxy, his own spaceship hot on Ilara's trail. The journey was fraught with danger, but Orion was undeterred. He navigated through asteroid fields and dodged hostile ships, his focus never wavering. The vastness of space was both a challenge and a reminder of the distance between him and his sister. Orion followed the faint energy signature of Ilara's ship, his heart a mixture of worry and anger. Each blip on the tracking screen brought him closer to her, but also intensified his emotions. He couldn't understand why she had left, what had driven her to abandon her home and her family. The questions gnawed at him, fueling his determination to find her. He vowed to bring her back, even if it meant dragging her, kicking and screaming. The thought of her resistance only strengthened his resolve. He was prepared for a confrontation, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. His mind was set, and nothing would deter him from his mission. He believed he was doing what was best for her, for their people. The image of their family, the memories of their shared childhood, all served as a reminder of his duty. He was convinced that bringing her back was the right thing to do, not just for her, but for the entire kingdom. The future of Xylos depended on it. He didn't understand her yearning for freedom, for a life chosen on her own terms. To him, the concept of abandoning one's responsibilities was foreign and incomprehensible. He had always been taught that duty came first, that personal desires were secondary. Ilara's actions were a mystery to him, one that he was determined to unravel. As he neared Earth, Orion felt a surge of determination. The blue planet loomed large in his view, a beacon of hope and a reminder of his mission. He knew that finding Ilara on this unfamiliar world would not be easy, but he was ready for the challenge. The thought of reuniting with his sister gave him strength. He would find his sister and he would bring her home. The path ahead was uncertain, but his resolve was unwavering. He had come too far to turn back now. The bond between them, though strained, was unbreakable. He believed that deep down Ilara still cared for her family, and that she would understand his actions in time. He would remind her of her duty, of her place. The teachings of their ancestors, the legacy of their family, all pointed to one truth. They had a responsibility to their people. Orion was determined to make her see that, to bring her back to the path she had strayed from. He believed that once she understood, she would return willingly. He would save her from herself, even if she didn't want to be saved. The thought of her rejecting his help was painful, but he was prepared for it. He knew that sometimes the right thing to do was also the hardest. His love for his sister, his sense of duty, and his unwavering resolve would guide him through the challenges ahead. No matter what, he would bring Ilara back. One stormy evening, a stranger rode into the village. The rain poured down in relentless sheets, drenching the cobblestone streets and turning the village square into a muddy quagmire. The stranger, cloaked in a dark, weather-beaten coat, guided his horse through the downpour, the animal's hooves splashing through puddles. The villagers, huddled under awnings and inside their homes, watched with a mix of curiosity and wariness as the newcomer made his way through the storm. Dr. Julian Blackwood, new to the area, was immediately captivated by the stories of Princess Ella. He had come to the village seeking a quiet place to continue his research, but the local legends quickly drew him in. The villagers spoke of Princess Ella with reverence, recounting tales of her wisdom, beauty, and mysterious powers. Julian, a man of science, found himself both skeptical and fascinated by these stories. He listened intently, his mind racing with questions and possibilities. He was a man of science, skeptical of such tales, yet intrigued nonetheless. Julian prided himself on his rational mind and empirical approach to the world, but there was something about the stories of Princess Ella that he couldn't dismiss. He spent his evenings in the village tavern, listening to the old men spin their yarns, his skepticism slowly giving way to a burgeoning curiosity. What if there was some truth to these legends? What if the line between science and magic was not as clear-cut as he had always believed? He found Ilara tending to a patient, her touch gentle, her eyes filled with a warmth he'd never encountered before. Ilara was the village healer, known for her skill and compassion. She moved with a quiet grace, her hands deftly applying poultices and bandages. Julian watched her work, struck by the contrast between her serene demeanour and the storm raging outside. There was a depth to her gaze, a kindness that seemed to reach into the very soul of those she cared for. He felt an inexplicable pull towards her, a desire to understand the source of her strength and serenity. He was drawn to her kindness, her serenity, her aura of quiet strength. Julian found himself seeking out opportunities to be near Ilara, to watch her as she went about her work. He admired the way she interacted with the villagers, her patience and empathy evident in every gesture. There was a calmness about her that seemed to soothe even the most troubled souls. Julian, who had always relied on logic and reason, began to wonder if there was something more to life, something that couldn't be measured or quantified. He knew she was different, but he couldn't quite place his finger on it. There was an air of mystery about Ilara, a sense that she carried secrets and knowledge beyond the ordinary. Julian's scientific mind struggled to make sense of it, but his heart told him that there was something special about her. He spent hours pondering the enigma that was Ilara, trying to reconcile his rational beliefs with the growing feeling that he was on the brink of discovering something extraordinary. Their conversations were a mixture of broken English and gestures, yet they understood each other better than neither could have imagined. Despite the language barrier, Julian and Ilara found ways to communicate. They shared stories, laughed at misunderstandings, and slowly built a bond that transcended words. Julian was amazed at how easily they connected, how Ilara seemed to understand his thoughts and feelings without him having to explain. It was as if they were two halves of the same whole, drawn together by an invisible force. Julian was captivated by her stories of the stars, her knowledge of medicine far exceeding anything he'd learned in medical school. Ilara spoke of the stars as if they were old friends, each one with its own story and significance. She taught Julian about herbal remedies and ancient healing practices, her knowledge vast and profound. Julian, who had always considered himself well-educated, realized how much he had yet to learn. He was in awe of Ilara's wisdom and the way she seamlessly blended science and spirituality. He began to question everything he thought he knew, his world expanding with every shared glance, every hesitant smile. Julian's time in the village and his growing connection with Ilara challenged his beliefs and opened his mind to new possibilities. He found himself questioning the rigid boundaries he had always placed around his understanding of the world. With each moment spent with Ilara, he felt his perspective shifting, his heart opening to the magic and mystery that life had to offer. It was a chance encounter that would change him forever.